everyone, this is Elliot Serrano for the Chicago Red Eye and Geek to Me, coming to you once again from Comic-Con in San Diego. And I'm joined here now by Eric Trautmann. Eric?
Elliot, pleasure.
Pleasure is all mine, sir. Eric, you are a writer for DC Comics, currently working on one of my favorite titles, JSA versus Cobra.
Was that me? Did I do that one?
Did you?
No.
And you're also working on a project for DC with the Red Circle titles. So before we get into those, why don't you tell us a little bit about JSA Cobra? That book has a very different tone, in my opinion, from just a regular JSA title. Was that something that you're aware of, that you did intentionally, so on? Because the JSA really feels more like a political team, or more like a meta strike force in the DCU, as opposed to superheroes that go around knocking people's heads.
I'm not sure if it's something I was consciously going for. I think it's, every writer has their themes and obsessions that kind of, they always circle back to, in the case of, like, my friend Greg Rucka, he talks an awful lot about issues of sexuality and issues of politics, things that make him mad. Warren Ellis, is all about body modification and future tech, and as near as I can tell, the quest for the best penis joke. And they're great. I hasten to add.
He does some awesome penis
He does.
jokes, yeah.
And Garth Ennis clearly has a thing for, the American Western and soldier stories. So for me, contemporary security issues, contemporary terrorism issues are a subject of fascination to me. But I think that methodology being applied to Cobra is probably where that tone is coming from. In terms of the JSA team dynamic itself, and remember, we're only 2 issues in,
right.
and we literally probably fewer than 18 hours have elapsed in the course of this story. So I hope the tone is consistent with the JSA as people know them, that the characterizations are familiar, that the relationships are familiar, because at the end of the day, you're pitting these really scary terrorists against superheroes. I'm not writing Checkmate. I'm really not. They're not, Terrific, who has a role in Checkmate, obviously has some of the spy going on, because, he's not 2 different characters in those books. He's the same character in 2 different books. But, Power Girl is, her solution to the problem of, well, we know this is obviously a trap, is going to be, and I'm invulnerable, and I'm going to go spring it, and we're going to hit them until they fall down, and we're going to send them to jail. So I think that's pretty consistent, I hope. And probably the only thing that hasn't reared its head thus far in the series, because we're really early in, is sort of the intergenerational aspect of it. There's a scene I was really, really happy with in issue 4 that plays a little bit off of. It was one line, and I was really happy with it in issue 1. Good old Jay, always there when you need him.
Right.
And there was just a really sweet moment between Mr. Terrific, who's really working this problem, and Jay bringing him a cup of coffee. You can figure it out. And then we're going to go hit it till it falls down in true superhero fashion. And I think that moment, as we move through the series and there's little pauses in the action, I think the more familiar JSA will be apparent.
I'm not saying it's unfamiliar. In fact, one of the things I really do enjoy about the series is that you do have a sense of that dynamic that the group has and how they interrelate. The other thing I do really appreciate is that you do have that very strong female protagonist in Kara.
I love her. She's so much fun to write.
She is, and you're able to take that. There are a lot of folks, a lot of writers seem to have a hard time writing strong female protagonists. You're friends with Greg Rucka. He's written Wonder Woman, Queen and Country, a lot of titles with strong female protagonists. Why do you think some writers have a hard time writing strong female protagonists?
I don't know. Well, we're dudes, let's face it. And that's really a huge part of the problem, is we're dudes. And I'm not going to pretend to have any great insight into, what makes a good female character. That would not come across as sounding incredibly inappropriate at the very best. What it really just boils down to, and I know this is Greg's approach as well, you want to write the characters as honestly as possible. and I always try and start from a place where I really think I know this character, and I write to that. I think where you see differentiations in the same character across multiple titles, across multiple writers is, as I said, everyone has their own interests and things that they're circling back to. And I think in certain cases, certain people's little writing kinks allow for what is called a stronger female characterization as opposed to someone else's. A great example is the Power Girl monthly. Jimmy and Amanda are doing, and Justin, and it's a wonderful book. Yeah. They definitely have different goals for the series than what I've got going on in JSA versus Cobra. But at the same time, it's the same Power Girl. So I think it's just different facets of the character get exposed by the story. And I honestly believe everyone who's working at Marvel and at DC are really trying to serve their story the way that they see fit. It's a work of art. It's subjective. So I'm really hesitant to say, well, because my approach is right and their approach is clearly wrong. It's just different. Everyone is attempting to accomplish different goals.
I agree. We're dudes.
Yeah, but yes.
Yeah, we don't just the women are hard to understand. I don't.
Yeah.
Another thing that you've done, which I've really appreciated, being a fan of Cobra from when the book first ran, you've made Cobra badass and cool again.
And I don't know how much of that is actually me. I'm getting a lot of credit for it. But on Checkmate, the very first antagonist we saw in Greg's run on Checkmate after OMAC Project and stuff was Cobra, and he had recast the Jack Kirby, Marty Pasco. I'm going to build a big robot and an invisible airship and sink islands and all of his crazy stuff, and recast the organization as this interesting terror cult. And then
Johnny Double. Can you bring back Johnny Double?
I think Vertigo has that one now, so I don't know if I'd ever get my hands on it. But Azzarello and Riso did a Johnny Double a while ago. That was wonderful. Yeah. And then Ivan Brandon did the Faces of Evil thing, which rebooted the group leadership, but kind of amped up, really built off of what Greg had started and I had been able to contribute to. Right. So, really a lot of the heavy lifting had been done. It was like, okay, well, now this character's out there. Let's put him through his paces and show what he can really do. And it just seemed obvious he's evil Bruce Wayne, and he's like in issue 2, he's got the snake cave, right? He's got all his old costumes around him. I was a little worried when I wrote that page. It's like, oh, people are going to see through this, and nobody's mentioned that. So yes, he's evil Bruce Wayne.
And then, as long as Ambush Bug isn't going up against him,
Yeah, issue 5. That's a joke. Rachel Gluckster, my editor, should stop sticking pins in her Eric doll.
I'm editing that part out.
It'll be Skeets.
Anything else you're working on? We have the Red Circle titles.
Yeah.
That you and Brandon Jerwer are actually collaborating on. Tell us a little bit about those.
Sure. JMS Straczynski is doing the Red Circle kind of relaunch of the old Archie heroes, which DC had rights to years ago and reintroduced as the Impact line as sort of their own separate standalone pocket universe of heroes. This time, these are actually integrated into the DCU. There's DCU guest stars and so on. So the Red Circle miniseries is going to reintroduce the characters, and then a few of them are being spun out into monthlies, and mine is the Shield. He's a active duty military officer who has this, these abilities that I don't know what's public at this point, so I don't want to spoil or anything.
Does he take the bath in molten steel?
I don't know.
No.
Not in my book, but
the original one did.
He
molten steel, and that's how he had the.
No, the source of the power is very different. It's an interesting weapon system, I guess is a good way to put it.
Right.
And I like the fact that he's an active duty military officer. He's not a Green Beret or any special forces. He's a straight up infantryman. But it leads to an interesting dynamic because he's actually, in some circles, he's not even really looked at as a soldier. Even in his own chain of command, he's an American military asset. He's a weapons system, and so that'll lead to some interesting conversations, I hope, through the course of the series, where he'll be talking to someone who he may even technically outrank, and he's like, "I don't take orders from a rifle." It'll be fun. And then, of course, Brandon is doing the co-feature with Inferno, and I have only read a little bit of what he's done, and it's wonderful. It's it's perfect, Brandon. There's action, adventure, excitement, really wild things. It shocked me to realize that I don't think I'd ever seen him do a superhero book before. He's done lots of licensed work. He does brilliant licensed work. But I don't think he'd ever gotten to, really cut loose on a superhero title before. And they gave him Black Canary and Green Arrow as guest stars. And I was like,
that'd be cool.
Yeah, those are characters he really gets and was really born to write. And I can't wait to see the final product.
And these titles will be out when?
I think it's first or second week of September when Shield Inferno comes out. I honestly don't know what the release dates are on any of the other ones. I've been so heads down on JSA Cobra and this that I have regrettably not had too much of an opportunity to interact with the other teams. A little bit of email exchanges, but...
Okay. Well, Eric, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Always pleasure.
Always. And you can see Eric Trautmann's books at your local comic shops,
including Olympic Cards and Comics in Lacey, Washington.
For the Chicago Red Eye, I'm Elliot Serrano.
And I'm not.
And this has been Geek to Me.